Well, good evening and welcome to Case Filters UK's Sunday session. We are back. This is our first Sunday session of 2022 and very much looking forward to getting to know some more of the Case UK ambassadors and partners over the next few months. My name is Ruth Taylor. If you haven't joined us before, I host these sessions on behalf of Case UK. And tonight I have got Case UK partner Chris Nowell, who I will introduce you to in just a moment. But just if you haven't joined us before, some basic things. We are live on YouTube and on Facebook as well. Do feel free to use the live chats in there. Ask questions of Chris throughout the evening. We'd love to get those from you. There is just a few seconds delay between you asking and them coming into us. So don't worry if we take a little bit to get to those. But we would love to hear from you. We'll be here probably for about half an hour. See how we get on. See how talkative Chris is feeling tonight. But it's going to be good. Really, really looking forward to it. And just to say, if you want to share this at all, or if you want to rewatch, it will be available just after we finish around about 7:30 on both the YouTube and Facebook pages. So there we go. Housekeeping out of the way. Get on with business. So we'll crack on. I'm going to introduce you to Chris Nowell. Chris is a Peak District-based landscape photographer and also registered blind, which is, I should say, quite unusual for a photographer. Chris, it's a real pleasure. Welcome to the session.
Thank you very much for having me.
You're very welcome. Very much looking forward to getting to know you, Chris, over the next half hour or so. We got 10 questions, give or take. So we'll see how we get on. But let's just start at the very beginning. You, Chris, I know it didn't actually take up photography until you lost a good deal of your sight. Why don't you tell us a little bit about how that all came about?
Yeah, so I'll try and compress this as quick as possible. But
don't worry.
It's quite a long story. But so I joined the army in 2001, the King's Royal Hussars, a tank regiment, and then I went to Northumberland, Iraq, and Afghanistan. And in Afghanistan, it was a 50-50 fight, I suppose, and I lost against a rocket, which hit the wall behind me. I didn't know it was happening. I don't remember any of it. Really lucky. They hit the wall I was leaning against. I woke up in Birmingham about 2 weeks later because I was in an induced coma, and I was left with neurological memory loss and sight loss for life. But at the time, they didn't know exactly how blind I was going to be. There was definitely going to be a level of blindness, but it could be total or it could be partially. And at the same time, they didn't know how bad the brain injury was going to be. And it's not because I'm hard or anything like that. I wish it's pure luck. Maybe I'm a bit stubborn, and I managed to grow through it. But the realism is that I got help from the NHS services, from charities such as Blind Veterans UK, Blesma, great family support, and with all that, I've been able to progress with my rehabilitation. And one thing was the first ever photography week with Blind Veterans UK. I was there one day doing a IT course with a chap called Dave Hickey, who actually lives on the Isle of Skye now, which is ironic. But at the time he was in Sheffield, and he was teaching me IT one morning, and he could sense my frustration. Every now and again, with people with brain injuries, we do get a bit angry and stuff. But, every now and again. But he could sense my frustration and the fact I weren't in the mood to do any IT on this occasion. And he told me about his photography. So he showed me his images throughout the world and all this exciting stuff. And he told me that the charity were going to have their first ever photography week, which was really exciting. And I went along. I went and enjoyed it. Had a great week, and then Dave retired. He was older already, and he's probably watching now and listening. But he went and retired and moved to the Isle of Skye, of which he's now released a book photographing the Isle of Skye, which you can get on Amazon and stuff. I've got one somewhere, but so he retired, and the charity said, why don't you sort of carry on, Chris? With some support from the staff at the beginning. There was me and two other members, and we organised the events, where the trips that we went to at the Sheffield Centre, and it went from there, and it's gone. And then as that's grown, I worked out that I don't like people, and I didn't want to be with
Nobody take offense. Nobody take offense.
no, I don't want to. Well, I don't want to. I don't want to be in the studio. Or I don't want to take
Okay.
photos of architecture or humans and all this. And I at the Peak District, like 4 miles away from me, and I was like, right, this is perfect. So my wife would come with me to start off with, and then she started to get annoyed by the Peak District, or she just wanted to be somewhere else, shopping or doing whatever. So I was like, right, I found friends. There was other photographers in my area, or initially just going out in the Peak District, but it was the progression of what Dave did and the charity, and then having the Peak District, and my love for the outdoors, the ex-military. It made perfect sense, and that's it. As quick as I can.
No, I mean, that's fantastic. I mean, it's fascinating to me that Blind Veterans UK actually have a photography course. The assumption, I suppose, is that,
Yeah.
blind is completely blind. I know you're mostly blind, is that right, in your right eye, and you've got no peripheral vision in the left?
Yeah, so the right eye's gone, and I've lost the peripherals in my left, so I can't see my own hand. But it's the obvious thing is when people go, how can the obvious question? How can anyone with sight loss take
That
a
was
photo?
my
But if you
question, yeah.
if you think of the obvious, like one thing you got to remember is that a lot of blind veteran members are a lot older than me. I'm young compared to Derek, who's 90 odd, and he people like that, they were doing film, which is
Yes.
the classic of all photography, and really taking photos the original way. And they know more than me, apart from, well, I'd argue that now, but they know how to take photos better than me when it comes to film, and that's real photography. So I only have to give them a bit of a hand when it comes to digital, and teach them how the more modern ways. They know the
Yeah.
basics already, and they need a refresher. That's all. But like I said, it's not just me. There's me, and there's a handful of other members. But I was the first one at the beginning with Dave. So it's quite exciting.
Yeah. So you're teaching. I mean, tell us, what's the process, and how is it different maybe from people who are fully sighted when you go out with your camera? I can understand maybe if you've got a digital camera, you've got a big screen in the back, you can work with that, I guess, a lot more. But yeah, I know you also teach film. I mean, what's the process for you compared to kind of a fully sighted person?
Well, watching where you fall over, watch where your feet go, obviously, and try not to fall over is a good one.
Good
Know
tip.
where you're going as well is another good one. Take my time, and what you said earlier, know your camera. So the right camera is always key. Sorry, there's a lot of blind veteran members. They go to not slagging off Jessops or whatever, but they go to these well-known camera shops, and they're trying to get rid of whatever they need to. And this blind little Beryl walks in, this little old lady goes in, she goes, I'm doing a photography course with blind veterans. What's the right camera for me? And they just want to get rid of it. And they get this tiny little camera, which isn't right. Whereas you need something big for the big screen, like you're saying.
Sure.
It's just common sense. And just take your time, know your camera, and you've got to learn how to fall over, if that makes sense. So
Yes.
I do fall over all the time, and it's about rolling. It's learning how to roll without hurting yourself.
That's fascinating. It's not just the camera, obviously. Learn how to fall correctly and get back up again. Yeah, I love that. I mean, you're out and about obviously a lot. A lot of your pictures are early in the morning, so I'm assuming you go out a lot in the dark. Does that add an extra level of jeopardy, shall we say, to getting to the viewpoints?
Yeah, of course it does. But at the beginning, it was a lot worse, which is why I had to find other people. Well, the first one is I can't drive, so that's an awkward thing.
Okay.
So I found other photographers in my area, which was quite helpful. And I'll try and visit a location during the day if I can. That classic way of like taking a photo correctly.
Yeah.
Visit during the day. Work out where there's any obstacles that are gonna kill me. Or make my day. Yeah, I'll make my day a bad day. When you are arriving at stupid o'clock in the morning in the dark, you have a head torch. Sometimes wear a stick, use a stick or a long cane, and I like to get there early. So when it does go wrong, because it often does, I fall over, or I forget something, I forget my batteries or something stupid.
Yeah.
I at least, I've got time to react and fix it.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned that you can't drive, you can't go out places yourself. Have you managed to gather kind of a group of people around you, and do you go out together with people a lot of the time?
Yeah, sometimes it's a small group. So if it's local, I'm lucky that I've got good countryside. So another thing I always try and encourage people to do is know where you live. So you've got to know
Sure.
where the good places are for you. So I can try and go have a nice countryside walk around me, but it's just not as good as like a trip to the big peaks of the Peak District, or
Yeah.
Northumberland coast or Scotland or whatever.
Mm.
So yeah, I found friends or people in my area, contacted them by the threaded social media, or through other friends, and like I said, there's a small group of us. Sometimes it's just me and one other person. Sometimes it might be a few more, and it's just like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
But if I can pick it, if I could be on my own, 9 times out of 10, that is
That'd be
is
ideal.
a better, but it's not always possible, is it?
Yeah. No, absolutely not. No. Intimate landscapes. I was on your blog and your gallery and stuff like that. You had a blog up recently about the first signs of spring. So you got some gorgeous little shots in there. I know you love to shoot little things and bring out the beauty in those, but also the grand landscapes of the Peak District National Park. Do you have a preference, or is it kind of you just see the beauty in different things, intimate or majestic?
It's bigger landscapes are my favourite,
Mm.
more preferred. But at the same time, yeah, like I'm excited for the bluebells coming soon.
Yes.
I've already worked out that, like, from last year being so horrible and dry, we've had a good spell of rain this year, and I think we're gonna have a good one. That's my prediction. And
I've never
good
heard
blue.
horrible and dry before. That's someone
Oh, it was
living in
horrible
England
last year.
versus someone living in Scotland. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it was horrible last year. It was dry and horrible. But I think,
Mm.
to get back to your question, I prefer the big open views of the Peak District.
Yeah.
By 90 to 10%. That's, yeah, much
Yeah.
better.
Yeah. I mentioned earlier, I mean, lots of your shots are early morning, very, very peaceful feeling, kind of lots of misty ones as well. Is that your favorite shooting conditions? That kind of early morning stillness?
Definitely, yeah. I think the light is so much more soft in the morning. It's well, more gentle in the morning.
Mm.
Um, Again, it's going to sound really rude, but there's less people in the morning. You only get your hardcore landscape photographers 9 times out
Yeah.
of 10.
And they all ignore each
Um,
other, so you're fine.
yes, it's all right. Well, you could do the gentle nod, but secretly he's telling me to go away. And I'm hoping he does as well, or she. Um, so I would prefer, your quiet morning times. There's nothing wrong with the evenings. It's just the light can be a lot more harsh, in my
Sure.
opinion, and
Yeah.
it's just the quiet side in the morning.
I mean, what
So
about in terms of weather? Obviously, a lot of people enjoy the dramatic weather, I suppose. Is that a thing where you would like to do that if you could go out in the weather, but maybe it's a bit of a hindrance with the kind of site limitations?
yeah, I- it's very different compared to the Peak District and like Lake in Scotland and whatever. They You've got the locations like Kinder where you can be really intense, nasty weather up there, but you
Mm.
can still get some drama. Because it's a lot lower down than places like Scotland and whatever. You you can't really do much with horrible weather, not really. So yeah, if it's better weather, it's going to be better.
Yeah, yeah.
Better.
Scott Reed is just saying, you didn't tell me you can't drive, and I let you drive home from last year's
Ah,
photography show.
brilliant.
I'm hoping he's joking. I'm hoping he's joking. You talked before about a couple of landscape photographers that inspired you at the very beginning. When it comes to artistically, your approach to photography, is there anybody that you are inspired by, whether it's other photographers or maybe even other artists, I don't know, musicians, stuff like that?
Yeah, so for photographers, the obvious one that comes to mind is David Norton,
Hmm.
like a very decent Canon guy, Canon ambassador. He, I, I found him online at the very beginning, so 2009, 2010, and I found a DVD, Chasing the Light, and I think it was released in 2008, 2009 time, so it was perfect. Um, and it was I think it was about an hour and a half long, and it was David explaining the fundamentals of photography, but more how he location scouts. So I remember I had to watch it more than once because of my brain injury, and
Yeah.
to really like soak up the information. But it was just the first half an hour of it, of how he went to visit a location the night before. Oh yeah, the night before, to get in there in the morning, and it was that really intense side of it, and all the location stuff before, which really like I thought it was excellent. I've
Mm.
got a few of his books and stuff, but yeah, I only look at the pictures really. I'm not going to lie. Um, and if and I suppose other photographers as well. So there's I can't do black and white at all. I really appreciate it with other photographers. And there's one, Paul Sanders, Discover Stills. He's
Hmm.
I think he's by far one of the best, in a national treasure, and he's going to laugh by that probably. But I appreciate his photography with black and white so much, because I just can't do it.
Yeah.
The contrast and the drama. Uh, I try, and I just look back at it and I think it's just flat and
Mm.
rubbish. But I think it's due to my eyesight. It's just not something I can achieve. So yeah, there's probably the two
Yeah.
that make sense.
Post-processing then now, what's your particular technique there? What kind of approach do you take? I'm kind of guessing it's maybe a light touch approach, or I mean, is it something that you can do quite easily on a computer?
Yeah. So at the beginning, I used to get home straight away, chuck myself straight on the computer, and I'd try and go through it as much as I can. And I've tried a few different softwares, which like Lightroom and Photoshop, not Lightroom, sorry, but Photoshop. And although I had it, it never worked. So I ended up working with Affinity in the end,
Yeah.
Affinity Photo, and that was the obvious choice. So that these days, I don't want to do any more than 10 minutes. I can't be bothered with it. Um, and I'll get home. I'll look at the photos after a few days, so I'll leave them on the computer, on the camera, sorry, and then when I can be bothered, I'll have a look at them, and I've got this steps I want to do, and like I said, yeah, 10 minutes if that. I want to get in and out. I don't want to fart around with it.
So you think if you can't do it in 10 minutes, then it's not worth it. It's a lost cause.
Well, I might give it 11, but yeah, then it's enough.
There's plenty. Do you know what? There's so many different techniques, and it doesn't seem to be there's any correct one. But a lot of people are very adamant that if you can't get it done in like 10, 15 minutes, then you're just going to end up over processing. And unless you're going for a super artistic look, they
Yeah.
just leave it behind. So yeah, no, everyone's different. I mean, you spoke before, obviously, quite passionately about enjoying your own company, which is absolutely fair, and many landscape photographers do. But also, you've spoken about the importance of going out and shooting with other people. And I know particularly you were mentioning on one of your blogs about when you lose motivation, which has been very, very easy to happen over the last couple of years when we've been kind of, forced to actually not go out. It changes your habits quite easily. Other people do help you get going again. Can you talk a little bit around kind of getting out of a funk when you're kind of in one? Like it's been quite hard for people, hasn't it, over the past little while? How do you get back out and get the inspiration going to go back out shooting? Is it a case of just going for it and just setting that alarm early and kind of just going with it, or do other people actually help you and kind of inspire you?
I think it's a bit of both. Yeah, I agree. I've definitely been there, and I know lots of photographers who are still struggling now with that, with the motivation. I think
Mm.
it's a bit of both. You need to push yourself. Um, I think that's where going back to basics is really good with that. So, we all a lot of people gave yourself goals during lockdown, and some people didn't achieve those goals, and that's fine. And some people really did, release some books and exciting things like that.
Mm.
So, don't and just never give yourself a hard time by it. But yeah, reach out to other photographers. Get yourself on YouTube, and it's a bit of both. You've got to push yourself, but there's nothing wrong with getting in contact with, like, an old friend, for example, someone you've not
Yeah.
spoke to in a while, or try and if you have to, try and new locations are good. If you've never, if you're struggling, go to a new place. That's always a good tip.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you mentioned on your blog about the importance of knowing your local area. You mentioned that just as we were talking just now. But you also talked about the importance of traveling, not necessarily far. And I love the quote that you actually had was completing your own Everest. So it doesn't have to
Yeah.
be actually going to Nepal or to Canada or to Iceland like that, but you can actually do that locally. I mean, do you have a favorite location? And is there somewhere that you would like to go to, or is it for you? You know, knowing your local area inside out is just as important.
Um, a bit of both again. Like it is hard because when you've done it, there could be occasions where you've got a local photo and it's it's 100% the best you could ever achieve it.
Mm.
But I'll one of my favourite locations actually, and I apologise in advance because I can never pronounce it properly, but it was actually on the Isle of Skye. It was Loch Seal, I think, Loch Silly or Sill. I had another word after Neve, but I remember that was the yeah, that was the I'll never forget the silence of that, and that was one of the first places I've ever been to, and it was that I was with Blind Veterans UK with that chap Dave I mentioned, and it was we had a few days where the first 2 days of light wasn't great, and I think we got to the location about 10 half 10, and I'll never forget getting out the car and just by the side of this water, and you've got the mountains. You probably know it well, but you've got the mountains, and it was the reeds.
Ah,
These
yes,
these
yes.
grass reeds coming. I'll never forget. There was no sound whatsoever,
Mm.
no, apart from cars or humans. It was just these reeds moving in the grass, in the water, ever so slowly, and there's these birds coming out of the silver birch trees behind it, going down, dipping, probably dippers then, up and down to the water, and it was just that. I was like, wow, yeah, this is for me.
Yeah.
This is what cemented what I wanted for landscape photography.
Loch Kilchrist, I think it's Loch Kilchrist you're talking about. On the way to Blavin, the kind of Coolin Mountains, and there's a single track road, lots of beautiful reeds, and kind of there's just forests in the background as well.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's
There's a church.
yeah,
There's an old. Oh, yeah. No,
yes,
what? Yeah. See, that's the English.
Kilchrist,
The
yes.
British of me. Yeah. Sorry.
It's, do you know what? It's hard enough for Scottish people to say. Points for effort. No, so Isle of Skye. I mean, you've been up here. How many times have you been up on Skye shooting?
Just one.
Just the once.
One,
Somewhere you'd
unfortunately.
like to
Yeah.
come back to, though.
Oh, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just a bit of a trek from Derbyshire.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only fun.
Yes,
But
everywhere's
no,
a trek. Yeah.
yeah. I'd go in a heartbeat. It's a fantastic place.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it is. It's absolutely stunning. It's spring has just come as well, which has been very exciting. We've had some dry weather over the past few days, so it's nice. It's nice. The winter is hopefully coming to an end. Memorable moments, Chris. We all have them. You know, whether it's unexpected weather, maybe forgetting your memory card, maybe just a great day out with some of your mates taking pictures. Do you have anything that springs to mind, good or bad?
Yeah.
But memorable.
Yeah, it was great and bad together. I was with a chap called Mark Henson, a good Dronfield and Peak District photographer, and we went to a place called Kerber Edge, which is an easy little location to get to, and I believe we were there. I think it was September, October time, so you might be lucky to have a nice stag round there early in the morning. And on arrival, it was absolute pants. There was just low mist. You couldn't see anything. It was pretty good. But we thought we'll walk up to the top of the edge to see if we can get a bit lucky. You never know. But I got out. I started walking up the hill, and Mark just grabs me, and he's like, "Shush, shush," because I was probably being a bit loud, as you do, or big fat feet walking up the hill.
Destroying the
And he,
peace.
and he,
Yeah.
yeah, he grabs me, and he's like, "Shush," and I didn't see it. I would have walked straight past it. There was this massive stag. In my head, it was 10 foot tall. In my memory, it was 10 foot. It's probably tiny, but you know what these Moby Dick moments are. It was massive.
Wow.
And this stag just stood there, and he walked down the hill. As we carried on going up, he walked back back up the other side, and it was the speed of how he got up there was quite fascinating. There's this massive stag, and then he just started gobbing off at us. That I'm not going to do it, but the noise, the rutting noise.
Go on. We don't mind.
No, I was going to that. No, it was just and like an idiot, I didn't bother bringing my big camera. I had a little rubbish mirrorless because it was so foggy. I thought I'll not bother. I left my bag in the car, and I walked up with my tripod and a little rubbish mirrorless
Gutting.
Canon thing, which is broke. They've all broke, and it was just there. And like one of those moments that even Mark got a photo, and I apologise in advance to Mark, but it was a bit pants again because of the fog, not because
Yes.
he's not very good, but it was just that moment of him punching me to shut up because it was huge, and I
Yeah.
walked straight past it.
So
was a good one.
did that teach you to always bring your camera with you?
Yeah.
No.
No, not really.
No. But a moment missed, I can imagine that would have been pretty spectacular. I've seen stags, but not as close up, and I can imagine they would have looked pretty huge close up in the
It was,
mist.
but to be honest, it weren't, the sun wasn't up, so it was very dark, like 20 minutes, half an hour before sunrise. So it would have been rubbish anyway, very noisy, and so
Sometimes good just to
I'll let
see
it.
it though, even without the camera. Just a
Yeah,
memorable
exactly.
moment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a moment I'll remember. And like I said, it was 20 foot tall.
We'll believe you. Top tips, Chris, or advice that you have learnt along the way. I mean, obviously you've talked about knowing your local patch well. I mean, what about if someone is maybe, on Instagram quite a lot, getting inspired by all the Icelandic shots? I know you believe very much in knowing your local patch, but beyond that, do you have any top tips or advice that you would give someone who's maybe looking to start out in film photography? Sorry, not film, landscape photography or film
Yeah.
photography.
Yeah, whatever. The obvious one that comes to mind is really know your camera. So if I didn't do it. I'm not saying you have to do it like this either, because I did it the most boring way because I could hardly walk. I had half a head at this stage, but I sat in the front room like a really anorak wearing guy, and I put my tripod on the floor, and I had the back of my camera going through the dial, and I because of the brain injury and that as well, I had to go over and over and
Yeah.
over and over again, and then I'd go out to out on the ground eventually and try and work. I'm definitely not perfect, but I because of the sight issues, and if it's stupid o'clock in the morning, I know my camera inside and out.
Yeah.
Admittedly, I've had it's broken, but I've had the whole same camera for years now. But know your camera.
Yeah.
So when it does go wrong, or when it's dark and cold and your fingers are numb, you at least can do it instinctively.
Yeah.
And just take your time. Just take your time and don't be a cowboy.
Good advice. I like that. Speaking of gear, and obviously you've mentioned your camera's broken. I think, did you say it's broken on aperture priority mode? Is it stuck on that now? You got your Canon. I
Yeah,
think you got a Fuji as
the
well, do you?
top. It's still in the box, the Fuji, because I haven't got a lens.
Right, okay.
Hopefully soon I will get it. But the Canon, I've still got the Canon 5D Mark III, and it's such a dinosaur. But I do absolutely love it because of that big digital display, and then and the magnifier. I can zoom in and fine tune the focus. And yeah, like I said, it is a dinosaur, but it does work. It does the job.
Case filters. Obviously, you use case filters. Do you have a favorite that you use that kind of goes out with you all the time, that gets a lot of airtime, as it were?
It's the one I use the most, really. Like 95% is the a freestop reverse grad, and it's so easy for me to then position the perfect side light with the sun coming up to the left or right, and then I can have that black line in the middle of the filter, and then it gives me the ability then to really deal with the exposure on that on the horizon. So it's a nice simple freestop reverse grad. I pretty much only use that now.
I know you mentioned before, sorry, I was going to say, in your woodland photography, which you've done quite a bit of, you use a polarizer quite often in that, don't you, to bring out the colours, which isn't something maybe people would necessarily think to use it for in woodland.
As long as you've got the light, so as long as you've got some light coming through the trees, you won't be able to see. You obviously can't see the polarization without the light.
Yeah.
But yeah, it just boosts those browns and greens a lot better without it with it. Sorry, with it.
Yeah.
Definitely a big tip.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, we're nearly at half an hour already. So just quickly, obviously we've talked about photography. Any other hobbies or interests that you're into besides getting out with your camera?
Just going out for a walk. I'm very boring.
You like the
Going
outdoors?
out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like being
Yeah.
outside, going out for a walk, avoiding humans and
I love this.
YouTube.
Anyway,
Yeah,
you need to wear a
just
bright
chilling out
red
on
beanie
YouTube.
so we can see you and avoid you
Yeah,
when you come across
yeah.
you.
I don't even, we don't, my wife or my family do, but I don't even bother putting TV on ever. I could get rid of it easily. The BBC license, I don't need all that rubbish.
Yeah.
But it's yeah, I just like being outside,
Yeah.
going out for a nice walk, checking out some local locations, meeting up with a few local friends, and just that. Yeah, it's anything outdoors really.
Yeah. And do you have any future projects or plans or trips or anything coming up in the next little while?
Yeah, I'd like to go back to Northumberland again because we went last year and that was our first time I've ever been and that was great. I don't do enough coastal stuff, unfortunately, just because it's a long way to go on my own.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, just somewhere at the coast, I think. Hopefully a trip to Pembrokeshire later on in the year. I think that's going to be a good one. It was ironic because one of our old army camps used to be near Pembroke, and I never really saw it as a beautiful spot, if I'm honest. You know, when we're playing around with tanks and stuff at the time, and it's stupid o'clock in the morning.
It's not what you appreciate, is it?
And wet. Yeah. I never really looked, but you see the world differently when you take photos. It's you see the light. You're looking for the light all the time.
Yeah.
So a trip to Pembroke would be ideal.
Very nice. Well, Chris, look, we are just about out of time. If people want to find out more about you, Chris, I know you've got a website, you're on social media. I was going to say, Chris Nowell photography.com. Okay, people, not to be confused with Chris Nowell photography. 2 O's, PHOO, photography, if you're looking for him online. Why is that, Chris? I've got to ask you.
I did it by mistake. If he is watching, James Pedler, James Pictures is going to laugh at that a lot. Or I did it by mistake and I didn't notice. And by the time I could just go and fix it, and I thought I'm not going to bother.
No, it makes it unique.
It's stupid.
I thought it was a typo on your website on Google, and I thought if I type it in, it's not going to work. But it did work, and I thought I was obviously stuck with this, and I've noticed that you've used it. Yeah,
that's why I left it, because it still works. Photography still works. That's why I thought I'll deal with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Later. So Chris Nowell photography, if you're looking online, you've got Facebook and Instagram as well. Chris, do we just look for Chris Nowell photography on there?
Yeah, just spell it right.
Yeah, just spell it right and it'll come up. Listen, Chris, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for giving up a chunk of your evening to chat to us and just let us get to know you a little bit more. I think I've got that. Yeah, I think it's about just double checking. There's nothing else we haven't answered on there. There's not. So we are going to just wrap up. If you would like to watch this again, as I said at the beginning, it'll be available on YouTube just after we finish. I think on Facebook as well. So do feel free to check that out. I will be back with another Sunday session. These are going to be monthly. Hopefully, I'll be back on Sunday, the 10th of April. So pop that in your diaries. I'll be speaking to the fantastic Dorset-based photographer, Daniel Retham, not quite sure how to pronounce that, but same place and same time, 7 p.m. So it'd be great to have you again for that. You can check out casefilters.com if you want any more information on any of that stuff. But until next time, have a fantastic rest of your evening. And from Chris and from myself, we'll see you soon. Good night.
Bye.